Hi. I'm gonna give this a shot. This is me, my good buddy James. You know what I was thinking about the other day? Why don't white supremacists why don't they just become Amish? Okay? Do you know of any black Amish person? You can't do that. Actually, you can. So here's how you do.
Only been a couple that I've actually known that were black Amish, but they were adopted.
Right. So no, there's a way that you can actually have that happen. So there's an event that before you become an adult, you go to this like you kind of like
the Rosh Springer.
Yeah. So you do that, and then you get hitched up with a black guy, and then you get pregnant, and bam, you have a kid. And that way, it's part of their bloodline and whatever. But you never see that. Yeah. So why don't white supremacists just become Amish? Because you're not going to worry about running into black people.
That's horrible.
I know. So, like, right. I mean, it's everything they ever wanted. You know, they're afraid that the Mexicans are stealing their jobs. So they just do the Mexicans' jobs, yeah. I mean, and that's the thing, yeah.
The thing is, they complain about Mexicans taking their jobs, but it's the jobs that they don't want to do.
I know, no, right. That's what I'm saying.
It's like you go to them, then it's like, why don't you do that job? I don't want to do that job.
Right. Like, so you give them the opportunity. Right. And it's like, oh man, the media is telling me what to do. Well, guess what? The Amish don't have the media. Right?
No, they just have their own occultist rituals and rules to live by.
I mean, so do the white supremacists. Yeah.
That's weird.
Yeah, it's like, you meet Amish people and they're like really nice people, and you're like, hey, maybe they'll, somehow become nicer if they become Amish. Maybe it'll give them some kind of like.
Amish are nice enough when they're outside their element.
Yeah, that's fair. Listen, I know I've watched the movie Richer or for Richer or Poorer with Tim Allen, and do you know what I'm talking about?
I've heard about the movie.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, they become Amish, to like run from, the whoever they're running from, and right. Yeah, they yeah, it's a really good movie. It was when I was young, so I have no idea if it's actually good or if my memory is just dog shit. But yeah. I was wondering that the other day, and it's like, oh, that would be so much, like, they wouldn't be trying to storm the riots, the Capitol or whatever. They'd be just like, hey, doing actual work. But yeah, I was.
You mean work like a poor person?
Yeah. Well, they do. I mean, they have, most of the time it's like they do construction, which again is an Amish thing. They I mean, granted, they're not going to be working with electricity, like, but.
Yeah, who needs power tools, right?
Yeah, that's true. But shit, like, have you ever seen some of the stuff that Amish people do with, like they'll build shit without nails? You ever seen that?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's just like Legos, and it's like crazy how they come up with that shit.
It's a there's techniques that have been passed down for thousands of years. Even in ancient cultures, you see the construction there has been that some of the buildings have been standing for thousands of years.
I know.
And there's no nails.
Right. Like, it's crazy to think about, like, well, and then, and that it reminds me of, like, you ever watched the show Ancient Aliens?
Yeah.
So one of the things
Hardly.
yeah, and I mean, when I was a kid, it like solidified this concept of, like, what if God were a person, and then it just kind of like allowed me to like come back to reality and a lot of things. But one of the things that, like, I was watching some videos, and some people are saying stuff like, it's really fucked up if you think about it, how often they say, like, indigenous people or people of, certain cultures are just so unintelligent that they couldn't come up with, like, building the pyramids and stuff, or rolling, like, certain things. It's like, it really is just, like, this really dumb, like, anybody who isn't, like, a white guy is an idiot, and it's just crazy. I don't know. Like, if you ever watch that show, like, listen to how much they just talk shit about anyone who isn't like European or something. It's like, Jesus Christ.
I mean, I look at, like,
Aliens must have did everything that, was like the slightest bit intelligent. Otherwise, they couldn't have done it.
I mean, I look at, like, the ancient Egyptians, like, capitalist engineers. They used a workforce with minimal minimal payment, food, shelter.
Yeah, and the aliens were the minimalist workload.
But they have, like, discovered, like, ancient blueprints.
Okay. Yeah.
So, like, of, like, ramps and scaffolding, and it shows, like, depictions of, like, elephants.
Oh, yeah, in ancient Egypt, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
It's like, so they use the elephants to pull the blocks along rows of logs that the slaves moved from the back to the front to keep it moving forward.
Yeah.
Which made it a hell of a lot easier. Elephants can pull a ton of brick.
Right.
Very easily. Up ramps, scaffolding that was created, and it's like, so you got the Egyptians that were telling the slaves what to do, and they were the ones that actually drew the plans, and they're like an executive. They're telling you what to do. They came up with the idea of how to do it. They just don't want to do the actual work.
Right, like so many other things.
So
do as they say, not as I want to do.
yeah.
I mean, but that, yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, you look back in history, it's like,
The tools that they use, such as what we'd call today the plumb bob, a leveling tool.
Oh yeah.
Thousands of years ago, to create straight lines and make things very plumb. And they were very accurate in their measurements.
Oh yeah. I mean, you had to be.
I mean, it's simpler tools than, a measuring tape, but, you get some rope, you measure out a length of rope, put a knot in it. It's basically the same concept.
Yeah, like, it, it's, we've...
This block is this many knots big, so this block has to be this many knots big in order for it to fit uniformly.
Right.
And they found these tools you know, I mean, the sandstone's very easy to manipulate as well.
Yeah, I've heard sandstone's like really light.
So, I mean,
I only know that because it sounds really light when I pick it in Minecraft. This is how much I know about building Minecraft. But yeah. And and you know, the thing is like, what was it, Baghdad Battery and all that stuff too? It's like, that shit's interesting, but it's like, it just, I don't know, it kind of reminds me of like Dr. Stone kind of deal, where it's just kind of like, you watch the anime, right?
I haven't. I've been
Okay, so,
putting it off.
do you know what it's about?
Basically, there's this disease that causes stonification.
Yeah. So like the entire world becomes like petrified.
One guy that.
Yeah, and he like
finds a
counts
cure.
like every day of his existence. You know how his brain is able to be like preserved for billions of years is, you know.
I do know there was a cross-dressing episode.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you would know that. Jesus, James. But like,
I haven't even watched it.
but it's really good because like, you have like somebody who like understands basic like, you know, how to make certain things and like fire and like he literally rebuilds like, you know, civilization from the Stone Ages, and
Yeah.
it's really interesting to see, like, because, like, of course the anime is like unrealistic and it's been fast tracked from like the normal, but like it is like a
That's most animes.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's more realistic than, you know, Goku going into Super Saiyan mode.
The most human-looking creatures in the planet.
Oh yeah.
They're the aliens.
Yeah, that's true.
Not the dog people or the cat people or the pig people.
Yeah. Gohan and, you know, these people who look. But yeah. I'm not a big fan of Dragon Ball, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, Dr. Stone is like a really good, like, if civilization were to die out, how would you rebuild it? I mean, obviously there are unrealistic aspects, but it's very interesting to, it's a very good anime to watch. Honestly, I watch that and play Minecraft because it gets me in the... It's like, oh, you can build and create and, you know, do all this stuff. It's like, oh, well, now I'm going to play Minecraft.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny enough. Minecraft is Swedish. You know what else Sweden has? Universal basic income.
And healthcare.
Yeah, so it's interesting to see like how you know, it's like, hey, how have they been able to preserve a game for this amount of time? And it's like, well, they don't necessarily have to keep churning money into the project. They can just like, you know, it's like any money they make is, you know, addition, not, you know, they don't have to keep making profits and stupid. Like if I buy, like I have Java on my computer, and it's like I can play that until like my computer dies or, you know, the server's there, and it's like I can keep playing that forever. If you play something like a card game or something like that, it's like, oh well, you got to keep buying into it, all right? You got to keep putting money. My Java never have to put another dime into it, and I paid it like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know. I think like just capitalism just kind of makes everything shittier. Because it's like, think about your iPhone, and it's like, oh, well, there's a new update. Now all of them suck
Well,
because the newest phone is out, so they have to make an update that makes all the previous ones shittier.
I think I didn't got one of those.
Well, I mean, Androids can do that to a point, but it's like,
They're not as bad.
yeah, they're not as bad with that, which is good.
The phone I had before this one, I had 7 years, and I only got a new one because it busted the crap off.
Yeah, which, think about it, the very first phones were Nokias. And they were indestructible. You
I'm
could,
sure somebody found my old one. It was a brick. And be able to charge it.
But you
it would
have-
still work.
right, it's planned obsolescence, I think it's called, where everything just kind of like, we have to make things shittier so that you keep buying your product because we got to keep fueling the company so that it stays afloat. And it's like, it's just crazy to think how useless things are. Like, I remember, like, as a kid, people would say, oh, well, capitalism breeds innovation. No, it doesn't. It makes everything garbage. Are you kidding me? Like, most of the cars are made of plastic and, like, easily breakable, and you gotta, now I gotta go to the car manufacturer and do all this stuff. It's like, okay, well, why can't we just do a simple fix? Oh, well, like John Deere and stuff like that. And it's like, you have companies that are like, no, you can't fix our shit, because if you do, you have to have, we're going to overcharge you and give you, things that'll easily break down. It's like, this isn't innovation. This is just manufacturing crap that's like going to break down in a couple years.
Manufacturer exploitation.
Yeah, pretty well. Yeah, I mean, but you have to. You have to do that, because if you don't, you die out. Like, I mean, there's so many companies that have gone under because it's like you just don't have any way of putting more money into it, or it's like if you don't have any way of putting money into it, just keep upgrading and all this stuff. It just dies out. Nobody does anything with it. So, like, EA Games is a great example. It's like, oh, you gotta have this loot box, and if you don't have this loot box, well, and I don't know. It's just crazy. Like, people say that, capitalism breeds innovation. It just doesn't make sense to me. It's like, you look at Minecraft, it's built in well, it's not. It is capitalism, but it's more socialism than capitalism. Because you have UBI, you have universal health care, you have all these socialist projects. And, it only depends on, it is more socialist than capitalist. And you have ratios. Because anybody who says that socialism has never worked, you can also argue that capitalism has never worked because it's a spectrum. You can have a capitalism and a socialism because it's like, you have people get like checks in the mail and it's like, it helps them out. And
I think a nice healthy balance would be nice. Though.
Exactly, yeah. Or what you end up having if you don't have socialism, you end up having, well, maybe it's them, in quotation marks, that are the problem. Maybe it's them over there, and they're the cause of why you lose your jobs. And it's like, now you start ostracizing people, and oh, well, they're the, they're the evil ones. It's like, and then them just becomes anybody who isn't white, eventually. But at first it's, the transgenders and the Jews and all this other things. It's like, and yeah, I mean, you get that now. Like, they can't. Hey, we can't talk about the fact that guns kill kids. Let's talk about how the transgenders might influence them in a specific way because of this specific reason. Even though, like, it's like, well, they're indoctrinating them into being gay. It's like, yeah, no. I was raised around gay people. I was raised, you know, I know what a drag queen is. I know what Bugs Bunny is. Right. No, like there is no part of me that was like, oh my god, I gotta put on a dress and act like a woman. Like, it's like,
hey, dressing up like a woman has saved Bugs Bunny several times.
Well, I missed that course. Maybe that's what. Maybe I need to. But like, it's like I knew gay people when I was a kid, and it's like, oh, I'm never, I'm straight, I'm cis, like these things, like, I'm not indoctrinated into being gay, and I'm not indoctrinated into being like, transgender, because that just didn't appeal to me. And if you are somebody who's like, hey, this is the lifestyle for me, well, then you're one of those people. It's like, it's fine to be, LGBTQ, because, like, that's just who you are. Like, can we, quit with the, proselytizing, and it's like, oh, well, we need to have a strong blah, blah, blah. It's like, no.
Guys can be friends with guys without liking them.
Unless you're Steven Crowder, and then you're, like, heavily, you abuse your wife because you can't have dick. I mean, pretty much. Like, anybody who, like, these guys who are like, oh, well, we hate gays. Oh, it's like, how much time and energy do you spend into hating that person? It's like, just fuck them already. Like, I don't understand. It's like, just be yourself. Like, I don't know. And anytime somebody's like, oh, yeah, you gotta not be this, it's like, nobody told me to not, it's like, oh, Phil, don't be gay. It's like, I'm not. So, there was no struggle for me. So it's like, when people are like, oh, well, I really I gotta urge these feelings. It's like, actually, funny enough. So do you know the song, I don't know if I think I mentioned this to you before, like, Flyleaf?
I
So,
can't think of that.
so there's a song that Flyleaf did, where it was, All Around Me is the song, and she was talking about her resisting her urges to be a lesbian. And it's like, because she's Christian, and she was one of the Christians who hated gays. Like, you can be Christian and not hate gays.
Yeah.
It happens. But it's like, it was just crazy to me how much it's like, oh, well, I can't be gay because, I'm Christian and God would hate me if that's the case. It's like, okay.
There's no, I mean, I've studied theology, the Bible, and everything, so I can tell you right now, there's nowhere in the Bible that would indicate in any way that God hates anybody because of their gender, color, or psychological phenomena in their
Right, and it's like,
or anything.
well, but that's the thing. It's like, it's never about, like, specifics, because people take the Bible out of context all the time to justify their shitty behavior, or to justify what other people should do.
The Bible even says that you don't change the Bible for your own personal.
All right. Well, yeah. We're gonna, all the Catholics that are listening to this, just excuse what he just said.
I mean,
we're just going to ignore, all the rewriting they did way back when. But yeah, and it's like, yeah, I don't know. It's just, how much hate that they have, or, that the religious says, and if you think about it, what, Jesus was a communist?
Socialist.
Socialist, communist. He was definitely not capitalist. And yet people you know, there was modifications to make him more capitalist.
He didn't. He believed that if you have the means to help people, you should help people.
Right, which is totally antithetical to, you know, most
But
of the
you know,
religious right now. You know what I mean?
He also came from one of the richest families in the in that area of the time period.
That's almost that. It's kind of funny because you can hear like the Reddit atheists go, well, since you're innocent, since you're rich, you shouldn't have any political opinions. But yeah,
he came from one of the richest families in that area of the time,
right?
Because his father was a carpenter of stonework, which was highly wanted by emperors and.
Oh yeah, I can imagine because that was most of what their buildings contained.
Even like the pharaoh commissioned work from his family to be done in the pyramids for like pillars and stuff, and to create decoration. Caesar's palace has one of his father's unfinished works in it. It is believed that Joseph died working on it, so they're like, you know, done. It's unfinished. Leave it unfinished because it's a bad. It's like a bad omen type thing. Like if you work on this, which somebody died working on, you're going to die too, type deal. So it's still unfinished to this day because of that belief that it's bad to work on it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you don't want to because that's a part of them.
Because they were commissioned by royalty and those of high power. They had a lot of money.
Right, and they had the means of actually helping people too. So it's like, you know, and that's the thing. It's like especially but that's the only way. Like even Marx was like, hey, if you want to give, or you know, you have to have the bourgeois work with the proletariat, so that you can actually because it's silly to think you have a lot of people that will be like, oh well, you're rich, oh well, you should just be poor so that you could be one of them, that but you have to have somebody who's rich in order to help out the proletariat. That's just the way things are. That's how it, you have to have somebody with power that can influence to make the life better for the proletariat. It's just how that works.
Sorry, I got distracted.
Yeah, you're good. And we're back. I forgot to press unmute. Good me. I was going to talk. So, have you watched some of my videos on YouTube?
I don't think so.
They're out there.
I'll definitely have to look you up, Phil.
Yay, a new subscriber! You can listen to this while you're at it. Alright, so one of the things that I talked about, so I got, I had, one of the things, one of the videos I was going to talk about, again, because, why I won't debate. So, I got really, irritated with some people, and I was like, I really would not like not to debate certain things. My point was there's no point in having a discussion with somebody who's going to be disingenuous. And I think, the more I think about it, the more I feel like, yeah, it's exhausting to have conversations like that. Like, imagine like, you're at work and you have, like, people who are conservatives, and it's like, or family members who are conservative, and it's like, it's so exhausting because they don't really care enough to actually analyze the information. Because, like, a lot of times you'll have some people who are just, they see things from a perspective that is like, they hear what they want to hear, and then that's the end of their thought process, right? They're like, oh well, like somebody we both know at work, she was like, because I was reading the book, It's Not a Crime to Be Poor,
Right.
and she was like, oh well, why is it that, or is it specifically talking about black people? And I'm like, it's not. Like, I mean, a good portion of it is, but it's not specifically. And then she was like, well, it's just propaganda. It's like, okay, but is it though? Because, like, and then I asked her about the Tulsa massacre, and she's like, I don't even know what that means. And I'm like, how do you not, like, how do you think that, like, people have been oppressed, and it's like, oh, but I don't know critical points, It's like, what's slavery? Like, are you fucking for real? And it's like, there's just so much that, like, it gets, I think one of the reasons why it's just so tiring to talk about, or to have debates with people, in quotation marks, is because, like, a lot of times they just don't really care about things that don't have immediate, like, you talk to somebody who is gay, for instance, and they'll know, like, things that pertain to, like, LGBTQ oppression, or certain things like that. They'll think about things that, like, pertain to them specifically, but, like, you talk to a white guy, and it's like, well, I don't know, nothing really bothered me, so I don't have anything to complain about, blah blah blah. But it's those darn immigrants that are taking away my jobs. It's like, as long as it's not bothering somebody specifically, they're not going to, try to understand things from other people's perspective. And, like, one of the reasons why I made that was because I'm like, having a conversation with somebody who's like, hey, black people just need to pick themselves up by their bootstraps. It's like, anybody who says that doesn't know what that means. You know what that means. It's like, and for anybody who doesn't know, think of your shoelaces. Now, think of your shoelaces around a boot. Now, do yourself a favor, sit down. Try to lay down, and then try to get up, and then pull yourself up by your boot shoelaces. This is an impossible task. It is literally a phrase that was meant to say you can't do this, and everybody's like, oh yeah, that means you can do anything if you pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Yeah, that means you literally can't. It's like, like missing the forest for the fucking trees, It's crazy. But yeah, and, like, having this discussion with her, and she's like, well, oh, well, we need to have equality. And it's like, okay, well, what does equality mean? Now let's, and I gave her this example. I was like, what if you had 10 kids, right, in an orphanage? Let's say this is, in this example, and one of them was dying of cancer, right? Like, you would give equal treatment to all of those kids, but one of them needs more treatment than the rest. It's like, not saying, like, not being specific, but it's just like that concept. It's like somebody's, worse off than the rest of them, and they need specific, things to make it so that they can be equal with the rest of the kids. It's like, this kid needs treatment. Well, we are treating everyone equally. So you're going to let one of the kids die because you are treating everyone with the same level of hospitality. Not every kid is sick, so you don't treat the sickness. One kid's sick, we're not going to treat them because the other kids aren't sick. It's not being equal if you're not allowing certain exceptions, if you're not trying to help out the one kid who's not like the other kids. It's just...
Yeah. Let the sick die because,
Well, yeah, because
they're not healthy. They're not equal.
Well, yeah, I mean, my bad. I forgot we're in America, where medical bills are just disgustingly overcomplicated. And it's like, oh, well, your insurance provider, takes most of that. Or the bill modifies itself if you don't have insurance. And it's like, well, now you got to cost an arm and a leg. Or you do this. And now it destroys your credit score and all this stuff. It's like...
Or maybe you find yourself in a hospital that doesn't take anything other than insurance, and they won't cover you at all because you don't have insurance.
Yep. Or, being one of the countries in the world who, it's like, oh, I'm going to call an ambulance, and people start freaking out.
What do you mean it costs $10,000 to drive you to the hospital?
Yeah, like, it's literally cheaper to buy an Uber.
Maybe safer. What are the chances of two people being in the vehicle?
But it's just, yeah. But that was the thing. It's like it tends to be like this disingenuous, like, you have a conversation with somebody and they just want to win the argument. They don't really care about, like, it's like they don't care about, like, anything other than their perceived comfortability, or they're. How much can I be comfortable in this situation? Well, that's as much as I'm going to permit bad things happening to people that I don't care about. And it's like you talk to a boomer and it's like, well, millennials are just, lazy. And it's like, you had a lot more, like, Reagan really fucked up the economy for, like, a lot of, like, and that's the thing. It's like you do a little research on that and it's like, oh, well, there was a boom. Right when Reagan did stuff, and it's like, oh, well, shit, there was an economic boom. And then rich people got the idea, oh, shit, you mean we don't have, the trickle-down economics, like Reagan said. And it's like, oh, well, did you know that there's such thing as a rain catcher? We don't necessarily have to give money back to the poor. We could just keep taking money from poor people and screwing them over. And it's like, generations before, it's like you do the research on this, and there's like a lot of different things that are just like, you do a little bit of studying on this particular subject and you realize, God, our grandparents had it fucking easy, but we don't. Why is that? Because there are just not any programs in place that will benefit us. And yeah, there's a sweet spot, because, like, you go before unions were a thing, and then you have, like, coal mining towns.
I mean, I struggle from time to time and need help. You know what happens? What I get told? Anytime I ask for, like, a little bit of assistance, like this past winter, costing too much for the heat, I go get my mom's like, well, we got heat. You can get HEAP. Apply for HEAP. Okay, Mom, I applied for HEAP. Let's see what happens. I make too much money. What?
Yeah, it's amazing.
I can't afford $200 for gas and electric, but I also can't get help paying for it because I make too much money.
Yeah. Well, and you have these systems in place that make it hard for people to get assistance because everything's skewed against. And it's like,
better off being disabled.
Well, I mean, we still have homeless people around here, unfortunately. I mean, and that's the thing. It's like
a lot of
you could make a lot less.
A lot of homeless people I've talked to are like, "Well, I don't need help." Like you're
but we live in a system that is like
you're living on the street. We have programs to help you.
Do we though? I mean, effectively. I mean, you're still going to have homeless people because you have a very limited amount of jobs, and you have to maintain a certain level of unemployment for people to be scared enough to want to work. And that's what capitalism does. It creates this fear incentive.
But then there was this one lady who's also homeless, or claims to be homeless, that I know for a fact, because I've talked to other people who have talked to her, know her.
Don't tap, please.
Sorry. They know for a fact that if she wanted to, she could buy anything that she wanted. She's actually one of the richest people in town.
So why doesn't she?
She doesn't want to. She doesn't want to live in a house.
So she
She doesn't have to buy a. If she chooses to live the way she does, she doesn't have a house. She doesn't have a vehicle, but she's also not paying property tax, state tax. The only taxes, the only tax she pays is when she buys something, and then there's tax.
Yeah, there's tax there.
There.
So she's mentally ill. Like,
she actually chooses to not have material things.
Oh. Wait.
But she has enough money that she could probably buy everybody in town something.
I mean, that's fair. That's like some kind of Buddhist mentality, I would imagine. Possessions possessing you, so she chooses not to have possessions. I mean, that's fair. I think that she should be. I mean, even I don't know. That works, I guess. I never really thought of it that way, but I can't imagine how she does during the winter times, or we just had the Canadian wildfires, and you can be outside for all day. I mean, I would imagine at some point you are compromised to the elements, especially if it's 20 below outside or something, and that people aren't used to that, or really really hot, and especially with global warming doing its job, she's gonna have to at some point, I would imagine.
Olean does have homeless shelters and stuff. They're called too.
Huh. That's interesting.
If you have the means to do it, live your life the way you want.
I guess, but there's a lot of but that's the thing. It's you still have people that are struggling from job to job. I know a lot of people that live around here that they have several jobs and they never spend time with anyone, and are constantly killing themselves just to make ends meet.
She can live the way that she wants because she has the.
Oh, she has the means. Yeah.
The means.
Yeah.
She
But
lives
not
that
a
way
lot of
by
people
choice.
are that privileged. That's the problem, though.
that like
if
if you're talking about somebody that does not have a choice to live that way,
right. If you
Then-
have like a lot of money and you choose to be homeless, that's one thing. But if you are like a lot of other Americans who are homeless and have no choice in the matter, like you're kind of SOL. Like there's not much you can do
I mean,
about it.
yeah, there's
What are you gonna do?
homeless shelters, but most of them only run during when it's extreme conditions.
Yeah, and then they kick your ass right back out. And that's the thing. It's like you need a house to have a job. You need, like fill out an application. You need an address. What are you going to do? Bum off your guy? I mean, you can have friends that'll bum you off, or hey, you can sleep on my couch until you get yourself situated. But that's off the mercy of somebody else, and they have to make sure that, it's very predatory. Like if you had a situation in which like everybody had like a UBI and it's like, hey, you make X amount, well, what would be the argument is, what would be your incentive to work? It's like, but your incentive to work would be, hey, I can work. Like people think that like the only reason that people actually have a job is because they have like a gun pressed to their head. That's not true. Like people, people clean their house. People, and we have to maintain some sort of like, hey, people are going to see me. I don't want to look like a slob. I'm going to clean my house. I'm going to take care of things. If you're constantly like working, you're never able to do anything that is actually effective. Like we would have a lot more social progress if we actually had means in order to do so. But that's the way that capitalism has its foot on your neck, is that it prevents you from actually making the world a better place.
I mean, we got people at work like Norm who are up in age. They don't. He told me he doesn't have to work. He gets his retirement and everything.
Right, and he chooses to work. Like
he wants to do something.
Exactly.
So that's what he's doing.
Like you have rich people who have all their means necessary or satisfied. What do? They're not bums. They actually work. And that's the thing. It's like people tend to have this mentality, oh, well, people who are poor, they just need to get a job. And then they won't be so lazy and shit. It's like, no. Oftentimes, people who are poor are working their ass off and, and if, oh, well, you're not ahead, you must be lazy. It's like, yeah, but it's just not true. People want to make an impact in the world and they want to, just because you don't have like the threat of homelessness, if you satisfy people's needs. Now, what do you do about like sewers and stuff? And it's like, oh well, again, we have, we can have things like automation help out with a lot of different things, and it's like, it's like one of the things that people. I used to live in Florida, and I'd take public transit everywhere, and it sucked because a lot of the trains are not trains, but buses were really like they weren't very nice. I love them though because they were very, I knew the patterns and everything. I knew what trains led to, or what buses left. Jesus Christ, that's the thing. It's like,
I get it.
Yeah, when you go to other countries,
Yeah.
they have their shit together. Like you go to like Japan, they have their their subways.
Much more clean, efficient, fast. Friendly.
Yeah, it's because they actually put money into their systems. It's like, oh well, you want public transit for everyone? Our system sucks. Yeah, because we're not doing anything to make it better.
Where's our money going?
The pew pew. If we took like a sliver out of the military budget, we'd be able to do a lot more better things.
Take it out of our leaders' budget.
Right. Remember when Trump said he was like, "Hey, I don't want any money from the Oval Office, blah blah blah," and then
No.
That's weird how, billionaires always tend to get handouts.
But they he's still getting $400,000 a year for life.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's something.
Yeah.
It kind of almost made him take it.
Yeah, pretty much. And it's like,
they told him they can't.
oh yeah,
They
no,
told him that he
no.
got
Trump
donated.
was like, oh man, I do not want. What do you mean I don't want money? I'm very fastidious. Oh, I'm gonna be a humble person and not take the money. Ooh,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, that's full of shit.
And the charity that he was supposedly putting his money into, run by his son.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah. Well, Bill Gates had like a foundation that he donated to that was run by Bill Gates. It's like, oh, let me give myself $10. Oh, and I'll
I'll just take the $20 in this pocket and put it in that pocket, and then write it off as a tax deduction.
Yeah, I mean, fuck yeah, man. See, this is the thing, I just need a charity that, is in my name, and I'll just funnel money to that and get it,
Yeah.
Why isn't everybody doing that? But don't worry, the government's not giving handouts to people, they're just giving handouts to the wealthy. Yeah. The wealthy deserve it because, they were born into circumstances which made their life a lot easier.
I know no matter how much money my parents had, they ain't helping me out.
Yeah, because they grew up in the, fuck you generation. They're like, everyone who isn't me, fuck you.
What do you mean you can't just help me out a little bit? You got a job?
Yeah, I mean, that's just the way it is. Like,
Okay.
but back to the original. So, the reason why I don't like debating people in general is because it's like a lot of times people they want others to, especially if you're disingenuous enough to want to have people suffer. And it's like, you have people who just think that the worst aspects of human, and that's the thing, it's like, even if you're, I don't know, I had a debate with somebody on Facebook, because I do that often, because I manage my time well. And it's like, I think it's good mental practice because a lot of times it's like, I will take a screenshot of arguments I've had, and I'll learn from them, and I'll be like, oh, okay, this is where I went wrong. Maybe I should research a little bit more onto this. Like one of our friends, I was talking to him about communism and socialism, and I was like, I realized at that moment I didn't know what the hell I was talking about. So what I did was afterwards I did nothing but research the hell out of that specific subject. So whenever I lose an argument, I always make sure I'm like, okay, what is true, what is not true, and let me figure it out from there. And I had an argument with this person about, they were, what was it? They were talking about something specific. I'm not gonna cover that particular topic, but they were, yeah, I realized that okay, I know what it was about now. They were talking about immigration, right? And they were talking about how they'll have a certain amount of people move in to our demographic, and then they'll vote, and then they'll change. The Great Replacement theory, essentially. And it was we had a back and forth, and essentially it was. I didn't know the specifics, and then I researched a lot of things, because it's you hear something like that and you're like, well, that does make sense. if there's a lot of people and they're all going to vote for you, that kind of changes things, right? So, in essence, if you don't know what you're talking about on the Great Replacement, you're like, oh, well, that does sound like a serious problem. You could have a bunch of people migrate and then control, you can kind of influence things. But what you do realize is that that's bullshit. Number one, if you're an immigrant, you can't vote. So that throws off everything because you have to go into the steps of immigration in order to get into our country. Now, let's say we had laxer immigration laws. Still, like, you're going to, it's just having difference of opinion makes everything better. Like, it's like you might not have, like, imagine if you had water and you put in like coffee or something. The coffee, well, I don't know. Maybe that's a terrible. Have a lemonade. Let's go with that. Let's go with that. So, like, you're going to, you have enough water, you're going to dilute the lemonade that's going into it. But after a while, the lemonade will make the water kind of like but back and forth. But the thing is now it's different from the original, which I don't necessarily see as an issue. It's like if you are somebody who is a nationalist and thinks that it's us versus them with the rest of the world, it's like that is terrifying. But if you want to better everyone, you include a bunch of people. Like, the moment you create a system in which it's us versus them, in the perspective of people you've never met coming into your country and mixing in, it's like that is a good thing because you create a system in which it's like, hey, well, my voting demographic is going to change. Yeah, and that's probably for the best. Like, things get a little stale, and then you end up having an echo chamber, right? And then you have, like, Nazi Germany. It's like where everybody who isn't your shade of white is, like, the bad guy. And it's like, yeah, and those regimes fell, and good riddance.
Right.
If you have a melting pot, which is what America is supposed to be, it's like you have different cultures, different ideas. Hey, today I could get Asian food or Mexican food, and it's like, oh,
It's not good.
yeah, now I'm hungry.
Stop talking about food.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't even think about it. Man, oh, that's echoing out. All right. But yeah, and it's like, but that's the thing. And if you do, not you have beans on toast. You invade the rest of the world to get.
Change it up a little bit with adding some hot dog to them beans.
Ooh, yeah, true. Sponsored today by, but no.
They just make everything better by putting hot dogs in everything.
Yeah, pretty much. Have you ever had hot dogs with macaroni and cheese? Like you cut up the hot dog.
No,
yeah.
no. Not like that. No. What my mom used to do was she would make mac and cheese. She'd put it in the cake pan.
Ooh.
Mix up all kinds, like maybe 7 different types of cheeses.
Oh yeah.
In there with some milk and the cooked macaroni. A little bit of milk to make the creaminess. Season to taste, salt and pepper.
Right.
And she would layer the hot dogs whole on top of it, and then cover it with more cheese, and then cook it until it's golden brown. But never like cut it up.
Ooh.
She didn't cut up the hot dogs. So like you take the hot dog, put it on the bun with the cheese and the macaroni, and cover it with the mushroom and ketchup.
All right.
But yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I just looked at the time. So, Well, we'll see how this goes, and then play it from here. We discussed a lot of spicy topics, so I'll see what happens, and yeah, we'll just see what happens. But yeah, thanks for coming over, James.
Good thought.
Yeah, yeah. And once I put this on YouTube, we'll see how this goes.
Yeah, it starts with some of the problems of the world and ends with food. Everything's fixed.
Right. No, food solves everything. All right. Have fun, y'all.